choosing that discomfort, voluntarily choosing that is on our route to mastery of ourselves. It is, when used properly, it is an action of the highest order. Those also serve who stand and wait. This is a line from On His Blindness from John Milton, who is the famous poet. He also wrote Paradise Lost. And within this poem, within that line, those also serve who stand and wait. What a contrast to our compulsivity. All of our compulsive actions encouraged by nearly the entire world around us. Those also serve who stand and wait. This is such a great reminder for myself. This reflection today is just a reminder for myself. Ramana Maharshi had this line where he said, it was a great sage saint, had this line where he said, "You're born in the shade. Why do you keep going out and getting burned?" This is quite paradoxical, not just from the modern society we live in that just says, like, do things, get more, get. Never just sit. You should always be getting more and more and more, and you're going to starve if you don't. There are these messages that are all around us that seem to suggest that. But it's also paradoxical because understanding the nuance of, well, is complacency, that can't be a virtue. Is that good? Born in the shade and you just sit there. Is that healthy? So the nuance and the paradox make for a really trippy reflection. But let's start with an anchor within this philosophy, and that is on the practical side of the philosophy, practical Vedanta, as it is often called. A philosophy that has so many practical elements, knowledge bombs within our life. It's not an irrelevant academic philosophical pursuit when it comes to this philosophy at all. 97% of the philosophy is just so dang practical in our daily lives. Listen to any of the daily reflections on this podcast project, and probably 97% of them are going to be practical in our day-to-day living. The practical side, the 97%, is basically summed up in action, action, action. Very few are fit to just sit and contemplate the higher. And those that fool ourselves to think, all right, it's the practice is to sit in stillness. Well, you could try that for 5 minutes and see how well you can concentrate on a single thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts. And if you can do that for 5 minutes, then hats off to you. Damn, you are one of the rare ones that can just sit and contemplate on the higher. But for the rest of us that get 4 or 5 seconds, 8 seconds in and lose our concentration, action is the prescription. Karma, action. Karma is not just a cosmic scoreboard. It is also, and much more important than that kind of civilization technique of encouraging people to watch out for what they do because of the cosmic scoreboard. It's valuable and it has its place, but karma yoga, that is service. That is action in service of the higher. Karma yoga, which is far more important in our daily lives than to worry about some cosmic scoreboard. Karma yoga, service towards the higher. That's how you get rid of bad karma. That's how you burn off bad karma. That's how you attain that ability to sit and contemplate. It's through action, 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 which is very different than most religious or philosophical traditions that focus on what you believe or what you say, stringing certain words together and that being the most important thing, and then believing them being second to that. This philosophy prioritizes action, action, action. So 97% of this philosophy is around right action, that which generates energy. That's the definition of right action within Vedanta. Wrong action, that which dissipates energy. That 97%, the practical philosophy, 3 words: action, action, action. To engage in action and to resist the temptation to say, oh, that'll be uncomfortable. I just want to sit on the couch for 4 hours or for 50 years. Not engaging in the battle in front of us. The battle for truth, the battle for finding truth, the battle for defending truth. The Gita is all about this famous warrior prince Arjuna trying to get out of the battle in front of him. And I always think of Joseph Campbell's words, the treasure you seek is in the cave you least want to enter. It's a great rallying cry for the value of action, for engaging with the battle at hand, and most of the time engaging with discomfort. The non-practical side of the philosophy, the esoteric side, the abstract side, that 3% that isn't action, action, action. That 3% is also 3 words: tattvam asi. You are that thou art. You're it, as Alan Watts would colloquially phrase. You're it. That's the abstract part. That's the part that you can try to sit and contemplate and reach the upper bounds of the finitude of the human mind to even partially grasp what that phrase is saying. You are that. You are what you're seeking. And when you reach those upper bounds, then it's back to, at least according to this philosophy, back to action. Back to study, reflection, mixing it up in the world as karma is often described. It's like a fire that heats us up. You know, anyone can be a saint talking about parenthood, and then you've got 3 kids at the grocery store screaming for gummies. That action, engagement with the world, that is what takes us out of theory and into the applied side of this philosophy to show us where our work lies. So action, it is the insignia of life, as Swami would say often. And it's usually our lower nature that convinces us otherwise, that we shouldn't act. However, those also serve who only stand and wait. There is profound value in the discernment of right action from wrong action. Acting for the higher or acting out of compulsion. And so many of my actions, pursuits, should I start a company around that? Should I invest in a few more startups? Should I take on this or that extra project? Comes from a place of insecurity so much of the time. You can be made in the shade and have this compulsion that, no, I should go see what else is out there. And you go out, and as Ramana says, you go out and you get burned. And he couldn't understand it. Why, if you're born in the shade, why do you keep going out and getting burned? Because there is plenty of action to do in the shade. And here is the reconciliation of these. There's plenty to do within the shade. It's not just sitting around. There's plenty of action to do when there is no credit to get. Plenty of action to perform when there is no financial reward to that action. There's plenty of action to perform when there is no self-oriented fruit to get out of it. Endless, near endless action to perform in the shade. Those also serve who only stand and wait. So John Milton, the poem is about his own affliction with blindness. how he is this poet given this gift, this mastery of language in describing the world. And at about 40 years old, God seems to be taking this gift of vision away. How can you describe the world if you can't see it? And it's through his realization that you also serve when you stand and wait patiently. Wait and listen for where you can be most useful instead of, well, I've done this for 15, 20 years. This should be the thing that I continue doing, and now it's being interrupted. That's his plans. That's his will. That's our will being interrupted. And choosing to stand and wait in the midst of a catastrophic transition, a tragedy, a shift in plans that you didn't foresee. Standing, waiting, listening. That choice to not act externally can be one of the most profound choices of action internally that we can make. In other words, choosing restraint and patience, which the Latin root for patience, pati, means to suffer. Choosing that discomfort, voluntarily choosing that. That is on our route to mastery of ourselves. That is a core component of mastery of ourselves. It is, when used properly, it is an action of the highest order. That is true mastery of ourselves when we can easily choose to restrain ourselves from compulsive activity. The Gita talks about the wise seeing action in inaction and inaction in action. There's so many levels to that paradoxical notion. But one of them is seeing that actually the people that are just filling their lives with distracting action, swiping up on their thumb endlessly, instead of engaging in duty and obligation. Going out until 1, 2 a.m. on a continuous basis, there's action there. But ultimately, it is feet shuffling around the world, choosing escape instead of right action. There is plenty of inaction in many of our active choices. There's also plenty of action in inaction. Looking at two paths and using the wisdom, the intellect, the capacity to see the end in the beginning and saying, you know what, I'm not going to choose that path. I'm going to restrain myself from even all of the sense pleasures that would come from that path. I'm going to restrain myself to choose this other path that will serve my community, those around me, more fully. And to those around you, it might look like inaction at the time. Surrender looks like inaction to those around you. And yet internally, it is service and action of the highest order. And I think I mentioned this in an episode recently where they were talking and Swami said, you know what makes me great? All of the things that I haven't done. He probably said this when he was 80, 85 years old. So the dispensing with any false humility that comes with a 85-year-old saying, you know what makes me great? All of the things that I haven't done. That is action in inaction. Choosing not to do 99 things, to do one fully. Choosing not to get caught up in endless knots, a Frankenstein of duties and obligations, as Swami will say often. thinking, well, I got to do these 37 different things because, well, I told people I'd do this one. I've been talking about this one forever. I get paid to do this one, and I need this big house, and I need to afford it by doing these 3 other things. And just get into these knots, avoiding our progress, development, what really helps our community. Convincing ourselves that we need to do these 37 other things out in the sun, getting burned, instead of the few that we really need to do in the shade. Those also serve who only stand and wait. How easy is it to just move your feet and seek escape from wherever we are? Pull out the phone and doom scroll to get away from wherever we are. And how hard is it to listen, to sit with whatever we need to sit with, to stand, to wait, to enter the cave we least want to enter, to surrender. How hard is that? It can be the hardest choice we could possibly make in that moment. Hardest choice to make moment after moment after moment, if it is a window where we need. And yet it can be the hardest thing to choose. Choosing to suffer. Choosing patience. And yet, as the revered Vedantic Joseph Campbell says, that is where our treasure lies. In that hardest choice. In that cave we least want to enter. And all of the things that we choose not to do. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.